I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to defend his cause. Maintain the honors of his word, the glory of his cross.
Hello, I am James Brown, and on behalf of the East End Church of Christ located in Toronto, Canada, I'd like to welcome you to our Sunday question and answer edition of Walking Through the Bible, a podcast where we seek to study the Bible and the Bible alone. Please stick around afterwards for information on how you can contact us. But for now, we'll turn you over to Jeremy Diesekamp for our question of the day.
Thank you, James, and welcome to all of our viewers. Before we get to today's question, I'd like to remind everyone watching that they can submit their own questions to be answered either by commenting on any one of our videos or by emailing them to answerintheword@gmail.com. Obviously, not every question can be answered for this podcast, but if such is the case, we'll either email you back an answer or respond to your comment in the comment section. Today's question comes from a man who wrote into us asking, what was John the Baptist asking in Matthew 11, verse 3? Let's first of all read the entire context of the discussion found in Matthew 11, 2-6. Now when John heard in prison about the deeds of the Christ, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? And Jesus answered them, Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. Lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, and the dead are raised up, and the poor have good news preached to them. And blessed is the one who is not offended by me. This passage has many Bible readers confused because we know John the Baptist earlier in the Gospels as the one who boldly declared that Jesus was the Messiah sent from God to take away the sins of the people. The account here in Matthew takes place sometime after that event, probably a year to 18 months later, while John was in prison for confronting Herod. There are three possibilities to explain John's words. 1, he had a lack of or a wavering in his faith. 2, he was confused about Jesus' kingdom. And 3, he asked the question so his disciples would believe in Jesus. Let's examine these possibilities. Possibility 1, a wavering in faith. Being in prison can lead our minds into places they should not go. We aren't busy doing anything else, and we can let our mind wander and begin to doubt things that we were once sure of. Jesus had not come to visit John in prison, so he may have felt abandoned, and perhaps John needed some reassurance that Jesus was the Christ. While it is certainly possible for someone's faith to waver, and given John's circumstance, it is understandable. However, of all these possibilities, I believe this one is the least likely. Even before John was born, he leaped in the womb at the presence of Jesus, Luke 1:41. John proclaimed in John 1:29-37 that Jesus was the Lamb of God. John knew who Jesus was, and not only that, he knew what Jesus' mission was and what his own mission was. So while it is not impossible for John's faith to have wavered, I find this to be the least likely option. Possibility 2, a confusion about Jesus. Like the Jews in John 6:15, John might have been expecting an earthly kingdom, and when this didn't happen in the way he expected, he sent his disciples to ask if Jesus was the one to come to remove the sins of the world, but another would come to set up an earthly kingdom. This option wouldn't have John denying who Jesus was, but seeking to clarify Jesus' mission. After all, Peter believed that Jesus was the Son of God in Matthew 16:13-18, yet still was confused about the kingdom, even after Jesus' resurrection in Acts 1:6. Knowing that this option wouldn't require one to deny who Jesus was, but simply be confused about why Jesus wasn't declaring himself to be a king the way they expected, is why we can't immediately discount this as a possibility. Possibility 3, an ulterior motive. John wasn't asking the question for himself, but for the sake of his disciples. This is sometimes something that we do because people won't believe us. We say, don't believe me, go ask them. This would mean that John did have full knowledge about Jesus, but his disciples didn't. So for their sake, he asked them to ask the question. Remember what John told his disciples in John 3? He must increase, but I must decrease. John 3:25-30. I find it quite possible that John's disciples were distressed that John had been in jail, yet had not been convinced that Jesus was the Messiah, so John sent them to Jesus to find out. So which possibility is it? The fact of the matter is we're not entirely sure. While it is quite possible that John had a moment of weakness in his faith, I still find that the least likely possibility because Jesus didn't chide John for his lack of faith. Out of possibilities 2 and 3, I find 3 the most likely because John wanted his disciples to follow Jesus. However, if we're being honest, we have to admit that we just don't know for sure, and that it's okay, for the Scriptures don't reveal it to us, therefore we don't need to know. What we do know was that Jesus declared he was the Messiah, and that all the signs he performed attested to that being true. Well, I'm sure much more could be said on the topic, but our time is up for now. Please watch this week's sermon titled Valid Baptism, which James will give you instructions on where to find in a moment, and join us, the Lord willing, tomorrow, when we will be continuing our study of the book of Genesis, beginning at Genesis 13:14.
Thank you, Jeremy. And to our viewers, we also thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Should you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment below or email us at answerintheword@gmail.com. We'll try to respond to you as quickly as we can. We hope you'll also be watching today's sermon edition, which can be found on our YouTube channel on the Walking Through the Bible 2017 Sermons playlist. Please also join us, Lord's willing, tomorrow when we will be continuing our study on the book of Genesis. Goodbye for now, and have a great day.
I'm not ashamed to own my Lord.